Hey everyone, we're happy to be back. If you've been following me on TikTok or Instagram, you know that I've been posting a lot about me and Stuart's journey returning from Europe. We were there for about a month, the month of September. And when we got back, we just realized we had both lost a significant amount of weight. I lost about 7 pounds while I was there. He lost 5 pounds while he was there. And we were eating so much more food than normal. Yes, we were walking, but we walk a lot when we're at home. So it just had us asking a lot more questions about nutrition and the things that we were putting in our body. When we were there, we were on a food tour, and one of our tour guides started talking to us about the samples she was giving. She was giving these little quarter-size samples, and she was saying for the Americans in the group, just be cautious because by the end of this food tour, which was about 2 hours, she was like, by the end of this food tour, you'll have had 10 of these little samples, and you'll be too full to eat lunch. And me and Stuart were like, we're going to be able to eat. And she was like, you think that you're not going to be full by these little bite-sized samples. However, we don't have the chemicals in our food that keep you craving and craving. So your body will actually feel satiated and you won't have kind of that trigger in your brain that says, keep going, keep going. And it just kind of blew my mind. And when we were eating the bread there, I usually have a lot of bloating or I feel very lethargic. And I didn't have that. And I was eating like a croissant for breakfast, a baguette at lunch. Like it just wasn't a problem for me or him either. And so one of the people we met on the tour had mentioned when we get home, look at the healthy or expensive bread that we buy and see how many ingredients is in it. They were like, we only use 3, sometimes 4 ingredients. So high quality flour, water, yeast, and salt. And sometimes. And then here, my bread had like 20 to 30 ingredients. A lot of it was enriched this, enriched that. So it just kind of sparked this big question mark in my brain. I started going down this rabbit hole and just really wanting to better understand. I've wanted to better understand the things I was putting into my body for a while, but I had a lot of you guys asking questions on Instagram and TikTok or telling me about your experience and how you've had IBS or you had a gluten intolerance. And then when you traveled or tried a different diet, it completely went away. So I wanted to connect you guys with a nutrition coach, or I'll let her explain kind of what her background is with it. But somebody that not only have I utilized in the past, but one of my really close friends who is having a lot of stomach issues, he's utilized her services in the past, and she has a wealth of knowledge. And, we've known each other for a really long time. So I'm bringing on Kat today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more. But Kat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, of course. So I gave a brief introduction, but if you wanted to share a little bit more about yourself, maybe how we know each other or, how we've reconnected in our adult years, and then we'll get into your background on nutrition and fitness and all those fun things.
Awesome. Yes. So, we've known each other, I guess, if you were like to compile the years, it's been like over a decade since we went to high school
Yeah.
together. Yeah. So long, long time. And we've stayed in touch socially, which I think that's sort of the beauty of social media is being able to stay in touch. And it's been great seeing you go into different business ventures and just really grown. And it's just good to stay connected in that regard. But yeah, I've developed a love for health over the past 7 years or so. So I decided to do something a little bit more concrete with it by becoming a certified health coach. So I've been helping a lot of people for a very long time do this and kind of using what worked for me, what I've seen work for clients that I've worked with, and just continuously trying to educate myself to better serve me, my clients, especially since the world's always changing around health. New things are coming out. So it's really good to stay on top of things. So super excited to be here and get into the topic a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that what you were touching on at the end too, things are just some things that they said to always do. They're saying don't do now. Like I know when my daughter was born way back in 2012, the big thing was like your toddler should be intuitive eating and don't ever make your toddlers eat things that they don't want. And I'm like, I was all for it. I was like, oh yeah, I don't want to make her have a weird relationship with food and feel like she has to eat things that she doesn't want to. A toddler is still going to reach for the sweet potato or something sweet over the broccoli, or I mean, so all those things just have changed so much over the years. Our parents made us clean our plates, or at least mine did. They didn't care what was
Yep.
on it.
Right.
Okay, so you said that you started your health and fitness journey and then kind of wanted to solidify it more by becoming a certified nutritionist or nutrition coach. Sorry, I want to make sure I'm getting the wording right.
Yeah. Yeah. Health coach. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so what was your first like impressions or memories with food or how it made your body feel? I know like I mentioned before, really didn't start digging into it until I started one, noticing weight loss or gain, or two, noticing discomfort. So, kind of what was that for you?
Yes. So I was actually very similar in that regard. So growing up in middle school, high school, I was doing multiple sports. I was so active. So what I was eating, I did not see a physical change. I had really bad skin in those ages. And now knowing what I know now, I know that it had everything to do with what I was eating. But back then it's just, if I feel skinny and feel fit, then I'm good. I'm healthy. That's
Yeah.
that was the determining factor of if you're healthy or not. So where I really had to take a look at myself and be like, whoa, okay, I'm changing, was actually in college. My exercise ceased. Obviously, routine was out the window. I'm taking random classes. I'm staying up late. I'm drinking heavily. I'm eating at all. I had access to food constantly, right? So my body actually started changing then. And that's where the physical appearance of my body, I was like, I don't like this. And now looking back, I also realized I was at my lowest mentally also. So in the moment, I didn't really realize how much it was impacting me mentally. But now I'm like, I was in a very low place. And I think my eating and then obviously how I felt about myself was at an all-time low. So it just was a vicious cycle of I need to look better. I need to do all these things for my mental and physical health. Um, Also within that same time frame, I came down with a really bad kidney infection and just had a really, really poor experience at a doctor's office. It was very They already diagnosed me before they walked in. They took 3 minutes to like take a look at what I was doing and told me to go do this. And that wasn't it. So I ended up having to come back and they had to do like emergency shots and stuff like that. So the entire experience just made me really want to better understand. I I don't want everyone to be in this predicament again. I want my body to work as effectively as possible. So how can I do this? That was kind of the aha moment. I went very, very extreme and almost went vegan 2 days after. I got really deep into the research. And of course, when you're looking for it, you can always find something to enable your belief systems. And this is as I'm becoming a lot more well rounded in all the various diets. A lot of them have very great components to them. But as as I'm working with people, as I'm realizing everyone's different, it's not good to be so rigid with that. And that was a lesson that took me honestly 3 years of being vegan to learn. So that was, and then when I had my first job in software sales, very high stress. I saw people just doing things, and I'm like, you could operate better by doing this and this. So then I was like, I really want to do this. I really do want to like help people full time. So decided to become a health coach. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, got my certification, and just have been working with clients ever since.
That is amazing. I feel like so many people can relate to that, feeling like, and keep going back to our Europe trip was kind of like our aha moment as a couple. But when we were on our Europe trip, we had a situation where we had to go to the hospital as well,
Wow.
and or Stuart did, and it was because he was having very serious stomach issues. It had been lasting for like 4 or 5 days, and he was just in a lot of pain. And their healthcare system also was just kind of shocked us because the doctor had nothing to do with the billing, nothing to do with the price. You walked in, they looked at you, and their job was to make you feel better or to help you get healthy again, which is just so different from here. That's another question that I have for later on. A lot of doctors, I think I've seen a lot more doctors pushing Wegovy. We know people on Wegovy or that are on Ozempic. And, when I do think there are other options, and I love that you mentioned being in a place where you had this very rigid diet, you were a vegan, which for some people it might be the best option, you know,
Right.
everybody's different, but that you were able to find components from a bunch of different diets and kind of make it more well-rounded and more accessible. To me, it makes it more accessible to everybody. Because if you say being a vegan is the best thing ever, but I have to have a steak, I just love it so much, or I want some milk every now and then, like there has to be a little bit of flexibility. I know that was a problem that I've had and other people may have had where it's like, if you're on something that's that rigid, if I slip up once, I'm eating the whole box of Oreos
Right.
or I'm, you know, drinking the whole milkshake or eating the tub of ice cream. So it's
Yes.
nice to have not such a rigid view on everything. And I noticed that when I worked with you as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So you started taking it more seriously in college when you started having health issues. I feel like a lot of people can relate to that as well. And then you decided to pursue health and wellness to just help people. I love that. So the impact of food is going to be kind of our next focus area. So you said that you tried the more rigid diets, opened it up a little bit. So, how big of a role do you think that food by itself played with your mental health? I know you said you didn't have the best sleep schedule or, you know, you had bad skin and you said you learned later it did all result back to food. So, do you really think that abs are made in the kitchen or that food is kind of the building blocks to everything?
Yeah. So I think food is a very large piece of the puzzle, but not everything. But I think if you don't pay attention to it, then you're never going to be able to reach all your ultimate health goals, truly. So I think when it comes to being a health coach, our position on health is not just food, but movement, sleep, relationships, finances, environment, managing stress, all of that is, they're all pillars of health. So you really have to pay attention to every single bucket. But food, if you're not paying attention to that, it's huge. So yes, what you're putting in your body, it's this analogy of the car. Like if you buy a really nice car, you're not just filling it up with whatever you can find in your garage to get it moving, right? Like it's an
Yeah.
investment. You want to make sure you're putting in the right type of gas to make sure that it runs effectively. And I don't think people understand that analogy because they're just what they have access to. They think, oh, if it's being sold as food, it must be fine for me. And unfortunately, to what you're saying, like in Europe and outside of the United States, they have more restriction around what they can have on the shelf for us, for them to purchase, versus in the United States, we're very lenient, unfortunately, with what we give people access to. So it's very dependent on us to understand how to read ingredients, how to know what does this ingredient mean, how much of this is in it. Is this really going to impact my health? It's very, very much on us to do our own research and understand what we're putting in our body. And I think that's the hardest thing because it is a lot of work. And that's why I think working with somebody like myself or another health coach or being a little bit more well versed on it is just going to be so easy because don't 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 spend so much time trying to figure it out. Invest in someone who already knows it, so they're like, hey, these are the things to look out for, and it makes it a lot easier. To your point, like being super rigid and going from one extreme to another, you're gonna fall on your face. That's just the way to do it. And for me, when I work with people, it's very slow and steady changes. That's the only thing that's going to help you. So, when it comes to food in general, and a lot of people don't understand, it's not necessarily I have to eat all these vegetables, like no carbs and protein. It's not even that rigid. It's okay, if I want biscuits and gravy, how can I make the dough from scratch? How can I make sure it's high quality dairy that I can get from a local farmer? Good sausage from, a pig that's local to me. Like I can have the same meal, but because I'm paying attention to the quality of the ingredients that I'm using, it's going to have a totally different impact on my health than if I were to go to like Denny's and order it, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of misconception around food in general. It's not just, great, I know I need to eat fruits, vegetables, proteins, and limit my carbs and sugars. It is like that, but it's also, there's a lot of nuances to it. So, yes, food plays a huge role. And I think quality is also the common theme throughout when I speak with clients. It's like, we don't have to necessarily change your entire what you like to eat. Let's do swaps. Okay, you're using this product. to your point, has like 20 ingredients for just a salad dressing. How can we go to something that either I make it myself and have a little bit more control over the ingredients, add more protein, add more good fats, and then also get that nutritional benefit. But there are products out there, which is we're living in such a great time where companies are paying attention to quality because we're asking for it. So there are companies where you're like, I don't have to recreate this dressing at home because I don't enjoy cooking. I can just swap this product out for this one. It's very simple, but the quality plays a huge role in terms of what we're eating into your health.
So we really need to be paying attention to quality. I know when we were coming back from New York once, we took a cab with a gentleman from Copenhagen. And when he found out that we were from the South, he was very interested to know what a Pop-Tart was. I was like, really? And he was like, yeah, I've never had a Pop-Tart. I've seen them in a movie one time. And I just wanted to know, like, what is it and when do you guys eat it? And I was like, honestly, it is like a cake filled with cake icing, covered in cake icing, and we give it to kids before they go to school. And his mind was blown.
Yeah.
We give it to our little kids when we're in a rush. They're already sleepy, and then we just hand them a little container of this Pop-Tart, and then they go to school. And he was like, I'm never coming to America again.
Right.
But yeah, so that quality, it's like, ooh.
Yeah. And I think it's also just people don't understand the context of food. Like, sorry. Because again, we have everything working against us. We have people telling us that Cheerios and these cereals, like they're meant for breakfast, right? And they're heart healthy and all this stuff. It's hard to know, like, do I trust that? Like, no one questions it. We're starting to get there, but we have to question it. And to your point, like all these pastries and sweets that were bagels and muffins. And when you go to Starbucks, you have all these cakes and stuff that like, this is not breakfast food. These are desserts. Not saying you shouldn't eat them, but know where they fit in what you should be eating. They're a dessert. If you enjoy angel food cake, great. Have it after dinner. Don't have it for breakfast when that's going to set the tone for the rest of the day. It's more giving people an understanding of like, do you know how much sugar is in this? Do you know how much sugar you should be having per day? Most of the time it's like, it's not, don't ever eat that. It's understand what that is. So then you can do your body what you feel is right by knowing when to eat it and when to not.
Yeah. And for cereal and stuff too, I've always been like, if it looks like something that I would put in a bowl for like an animal or not even as good as what I would put in a bowl for like our dog food looked better than plain Cheerios in a bowl, if you really think about it. Like, I would be like, my dog's not quite getting enough nutrition.
Right.
But we'll eat it just fine. So you talked a lot about the ingredients going in your food. I love that you were like, you can eat the foods that you love, but amp up the quality of the ingredients. And I do think that as Americans, a lot of us have tried to give up that control. We want the quickest, the fastest, fast food, drive through, not think about it. I want a number 6. You can't even be bothered to say the whole food order that you want.
Right.
And it's like you've given away, or I have given away so much control in the past that when I started regaining that control of the things that go into my food and the quality, it's very therapeutic to, have a conversation with someone at the farmer's market and they tell you, oh, these sweet potatoes might taste a little bit different because we've had a lot of rain this year. I would have never thought about that. And they were like, oh, are you using these apples for a dessert? Are you going to bake them or are you going to eat them like they are? Because if you're going to eat them like they are, these are the best and these are the ones to bake. And it's like, yes, you can read that stuff online or in a book, but meeting with the farmers that do this day in and day out really does give you more respect for the food. I notice that my food goes to waste less. I don't know why. Maybe it's just something in my brain, but I feel like when I'm connecting a face and I saw somebody that worked hard to create this food for me and I can make that connection other than just it sitting on a shelf, I am more excited to eat it. I'm like proud to have it as part of my meal. And I know that sounds really strange, but it does. Like I'll picture the guy at the farmer's market that sold us these sweet potatoes and I'll be like, oh, I could grab this frozen bag of broccolis that I'm sure is good, but I'm going to use these so they don't go bad and make sure, So that's kind of made a difference for us in just creating that connection, which I know you mentioned in the pillars that you look at too, probably helps with relationships as well. Having a relationship with the person that is growing and creating your food and increasing that control that you have over your ingredients, I think is excellent. In your opinion, what do you, or, what do you know to be fact is the worst ingredient that we can be putting into our bodies? I know for me and a lot of women, especially that I know, they would say a carb. Like, don't ever put a carb in your body. Don't ever put, and like, I know that that's not a specific ingredient, but I'm thinking of like flour, bread. But what do you think is the worst ingredient that you could be consuming too much of or over consuming?
Yeah. So this is actually not what a lot of people think, but my clients, one of the first things that I have them pay attention to in terms of an ingredient is actually inflammatory oils. So not even
Okay.
carbs, not even sugars, really. Sugars is close second, but inflammatory oils. So think of things like soybean oil, vegetable, canola, safflower, grapeseed. These oils are so highly processed and they are in literally everything. And so while maybe in small amounts, they're not as impactful, but when they're sprinkled in everything, and it's similar to sugar, when it's sprinkled in everything that you're eating, it piles on and it's super damaging to your gut, which again, everything is rooted in the gut. So if you have a poor gut, like forget it. You can eat as healthy as you want and it's not going to do you much good. Damaging to the gut, damaging to your cells internally. So your body's just not going to perform effectively. If you're having hormone imbalances, inflammatory oils are only just going to aid in that inflammation internally. So being very cognizant of where these are. And I'm telling you, when they're in everything, this is why I'm so critical of people looking at ingredients, because look at that protein bar that you think is super good for you and you're making a better switch between chips and a protein bar. It might have corn oil in it. Coffee creamers, majority of them have vegetable oil in them. Every time you eat out, you are exposing yourself to inflammatory oils. So even if you're going to a bowl place and you're getting roasted veggies and protein and quinoa, you're still exposing yourself to that. And that's where, again, I just want people to understand the context of where you're getting exposed. It's in healthy yogurts, it's in your salad dressings, it's everywhere. So if we can healthy swap that, get better oils in terms of how you're cooking at home versus cheaper olive oils that tend to have a blend of canola and all of those inflammatory oils, that is going to be a huge bang for your buck, because it's going to cut down inflammation significantly. It's going to increase your awareness of where these things are. And no surprise to anybody, processed foods has these oils in them. So it almost gets rid of those without having to be like, the reason we're getting rid of those is because they are high in sugar or what have you. And my clients almost immediately feel like, oh, I don't have bloating or fatigue after I eat. I don't feel like I need to take a nap after. That's like, I still enjoy going out to eat. I love it. So it's not like, again, oh, I can't expose myself to inflammatory oils. I'm just aware that, hey, when I go to this restaurant, like that's what I'm getting and that's fine. But I feel so drained and bloated after I eat a meal. And it's because of that. And I think once you start removing it, and then once you introduce it back, you're like, ooh, I was feeling like that this whole time. Like I was used to it. So inflammatory oils is actually the number one thing that I think everyone should pay attention to. If you don't want to track carbs, sugars, proteins, track inflammatory oils. You're going to do a lot for your health in a good way that way.
That is such an amazing tip. I remember it was probably almost a year ago when I started working with you and purchased one of your packages. I loved that it asked me a bunch of questions kind of across the board about my sleep, about my caffeine intake, about it did ask me about inflammatory oils. And I'm going to keep going back to this Europe trip. They talked to us about
Mhm.
oils a lot while we were there too. And they were talking about the olive oil and, the difference between the cold pressed and the regular. And they're like, you always want cold pressed because it's filtered again and all of these little things. And they were like, those little clear white plastic things that Americans put on their shelves with olive oil, it kills all of the good things in the oil and it
Right.
messes up the flavor. So like put it in a dark or like amber container or on your counter, not right next to your stove. And we just learned so much. So they were like high quality salt, high quality oils. So that's excellent that that was kind of your pick too, because I was really interested to know if it kind of correlated or if sugar was going to be the number one, which I agree with you. If you're cutting out a lot of these inflammatory oils, you do just kind of cut out sugars. And
Mhm.
we've been working with this with our daughter too, who's 11. And, when we create her lunchbox, yeah, she's going to get a thing of gummies in there if she wants them, but she's also going to get like hummus and carrots or strawberries and oranges. And then I'll say, what's missing? And she was like, I don't have a fat in there yet. And I'm like, okay,
Love
let's put a cheese or let's
that.
put some, nuts or something. Like, we'll just kind of talk to her about the different categories of food. So I think that that's great as well.
Yes.
But adding that in, so would you say that like an olive oil or an avocado oil that's really high quality is a good source of fat for a meal? Like if I'm cooking my vegetables in that, would that be a good fat to have with a meal or no?
Absolutely. So, and to keep it simple, you can go very deep into the olive oil and oil conversation of,
Yeah.
okay, avocado oil is better for high heat. And so when you're frying stuff, use that. And you can go there eventually. And again, just like anything, you'll get more versed and knowledgeable of things. So you'll be able to make and fine tune those as you become a lot more as you go further down in your health journey. But to keep things very basic, yes, I say get a good quality olive oil, to what you said, cold pressed, extra virgin, organic, in a dark bottle. Store it not somewhere where it's getting super exposed to heat consistently. Olive oil tends to be that catch all. It's fairly good at high heat. It's fairly versatile in terms of what you're cooking. So to keep things simple, any key takeaway from this podcast, go home, stop using vegetable oil, crappy olive oil, and get and invest in a good bottle.
Crisco. We have family that still uses Crisco. I'm like,
Right?
girl.
I know. Well, because that was the narrative. It was like, this is a better alternative to butter, which is also where I'm going next. I always have good quality olive oil, and then I always keep grass fed, grass finished butter. And a lot of people are like, you eat so much butter. And I'm like, yes, you don't need to be scared of butter. Be scared of crappy butter, but butter from a grass fed, grass finished cow is a great fat. It makes your vegetables taste a lot better. It's great for baking. It's it's really, really good. People put it in coffee. So like don't be afraid of butter. Just make sure you're getting the right type of butter. Again, it's not all about just villainizing and generalizing that butter's bad for you or salt is bad for you. I know you mentioned salt. Good quality salt, good quality butter, like use it a lot. It's going to make your food taste better. You're going to be a lot more satiated, and your cells are actually going to really like that fat as well.
Yeah, it's hard to break those cycles. I feel like just making simple swaps, especially, I mean, we're from the South and like my grandmother, she suffers from MS. She's been on the podcast before. We love her. When she's cooking, it's like all of the vegetable oil. She's just now starting to switch over to olive oil. But then she's like, oh, I'm eating healthy. And then she'll pull out the, I can't believe it's not butter. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what is this? And so, yeah, just trying to make these little swaps, not only for ourselves, but you don't want to be that one person in the family that's like, don't eat that. But at the same time,
Right.
I'm like, I want you to feel good and be healthy. So yeah, I do. I do think that butter is delicious. We were trying this like Amish butter stuff, and then had like a really nice high level fat, and it was grass fed, and we like it. But I don't know if you've heard of this app, and it's not sponsored or anything, unfortunately. But it's called the
One day.
Yuka app, like Yuka. And we love it. So when you're at the grocery store, they started in France, and we've been using it even before we took this Europe trip. But we just use it even more now. And you can have the paid version where you can type in the name of the food and it'll give you like a rating. So if we scan something in our refrigerator, I might even be able to pull it up and show you, but if we scan anything in our refrigerator, like our milk or our butter, it'll tell you a rating, like 1 out of 100. Okay, so yesterday when I was at the grocery store, I scanned this 100% grass-fed beef. And so it said the positive is that it has no additives, it's protein, it's organic. So this was 100 out of 100. But I was considering getting ground lamb because I was like, oh, that's like a little bit different. Maybe we should get that. But it gave that a 39 out of 100. It just said that, it had too much saturated fat. Certain foods that we were considering to get for our daughter, we were like, okay, no, this has additives, or it's really easy for us. Like she wanted to get the mega stuff Oreos. And I was like, not this time because we're already getting something else. Why don't we scan it and see why it might not be the best choice? So we can scan it and it says that it has additives. Then when you click on the additives, it says these are 80% to be cancer causing, saturated fats, too much sugar, too many calories, and it gives Oreos a 24 out of 100. So that to us was such an easy way to kind of take a little bit of the stress off. Obviously, working with a nutritionist and a health coach was number one. That was the starter. Because even if you're buying, you can scan stuff in the grocery store all day long, but if you're not pairing them correctly, and you're just eating 5 fats together for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're not getting a well-rounded diet. So that just really kind of helped take a little bit of the pressure off of us, especially explaining it to a little one. So that, helped if you ever want to try it. I have the free version, and I think Stuart has the paid one.
Yeah, I love that also. And I think we touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but I love that you are giving your daughter a sense of building a healthy relationship with food. I think that is a lot of the clients that I work with, actually, they have developed this relationship with food at a very young age, which is they're dealing with the trauma now, and it's preventing them from being able to lose weight by doing all the things that are like, great, I'm exercising, I'm eating right, I'm sleeping well, like what is going on? It's a lot of that emotional trauma and the narratives that they were taught as a child. So for anyone who's a parent or thinking about being a parent, it's very critical to develop that type of relationship. And I love what you said, like, Oreo's not this time. So you're not villainizing it to like scare them into not having fun foods, but it's just, okay, let's give context. Like, hey, we're already getting this. Maybe next trip we'll get that. It's like that 80-20 thing. And I think that's very helpful. You don't want to make it to where they're scared of these things or it's a fear-based thing, but also letting them know, like, this is the reason why we don't eat this a lot. Like, just to be quite frank. And then that will carry with her throughout her entire, especially for women in general. We're very complex. We have a lot, socially, hormonally, we have a lot working against us in that regard. So developing a healthy relationship as early as you can is going to be very, very critical.
And I was pretty strict with her from a very young age. When I first had her, I didn't have the finances, the resources, or the education to do anything. So I felt like by the time she was like 2 or 3, I went a little bit harder because I was like, all right, I need to make up for maybe formula or this, or just I had so many fears of like, did I already start her off on the wrong foot? And then try to just make it the best that I could, like, from that point, probably when she was like 3, like right when I started like a daycare and started like packing her lunches and stuff. But I'll say when she goes to the doctor, she gets great health reports. She's significantly more, she looks like a kid, not as developed as other kids. I feel like that's because we limit the amount of hormones that she has in her food or the amount of processed food she gets. And when she does get processed food or Chick-fil-A or something, it's a treat. But like you said earlier, just like for us adults, she'll say, every time that I eat Chick-fil-A, like my stomach kind of pokes out, or not pokes out like she's fat, but pokes out like she's like, it feels like there's air in it. And I'm like, yeah, it gets a little bloated because they're using a lot of oil in the food or a lot of, sugar or whatever. So it's kind of interesting that she's already at 11, like picking up those things. And my mom is a weight loss coach, and she's lost like 150 pounds, like in her weight loss journey. And she coaches people, and she's going to be on in a couple episodes. But talking about that relationship, she says that so many of her clients, she's like, that these are not trigger foods, but these are foods, like we said, like the slippery slope. Like if I eat one and I have a very rigid diet, I'm just going to eat them all. She's like, why are you keeping them in the house? Well, the kids have to have Oreos and the kids have to have Pop-Tarts in the house. And she's like, why would you want to be setting them up for the same type of relationship with food that you had that got you in this situation? So it's like, it is like a very slippery slope, and it's good to educate them early. And having somebody like you or a coach give you that foundation, I just feel like it helps so much build the confidence of being like, okay, I'm not doing the wrong thing, if that makes sense. Because you will feel like you're doing it too rigid. It always feels like it's too much when you're putting yourself on any types of restrictions. At least it feels like that for me. So the next food impact question I have is about calories. So when it comes to weight loss and wellness, are weight loss and wellness the same thing? And is it? I know that we've said like ingredients and stuff is very important, high quality, but do you need one to have the other? Like, if you're eating healthy, should you be seeing weight loss? If you change to eating healthier, you switch out your inflammatory oils for healthier alternatives, you're not using the fake butter. If you don't see weight loss, does that mean you're not healthy? Or if you are seeing a lot of weight loss, does it mean that you are?
Great question. And this is the biggest thing. And I hear people talk about it all the time. And it's honestly like my family, they know I'm super into health, and they are probably saying this because they think I'm judging them and what they're eating. But they'll be like, this guy I know, he was a runner and had 0% body fat and died of a heart attack at 55. So it's just genetic. Like, that's always what I hear. And I'm like, okay, like, let's unpack that a little bit. So it's there's so many nuances to this, because no, if you a lot of people associate, if you physically look fit, if you have muscles, then you're healthy. And then
Mhm.
people also relay like, well, if you don't have that, then you're not as healthy as the people that do have that. And that's just really not true. It's crazy because early on when I was getting into working out, I was like, I want to look like her. Like, she has no body fat. Like, and it's funny because I still follow them. And now it's coming out that they have to like undergo drastic surgeries because their hormones were so messed up for so long that their body basically gave out. And
Mhm.
so everything's kind of coming full circle of like, health is not supposed to be very dramatic one way or the other. Move your body, get good sleep, eat majority good things, and you'll be fine. Like, that's really it. And manage your stress. It's very simple. But to your point, especially as Americans, we want the fast track. We want the extreme. We don't feel like we're making impact if we don't see it every single day. If we're not sweating at the gym and about to pass out, we feel like we didn't have a good workout. It's a huge brain shift. And it was for me because I was a very avid athlete and working out. So I truly didn't feel like, oh, if I'm not seeing abs, if I'm not seeing muscle tone, if I'm not drenched in sweat when I leave, I didn't do anything. And that couldn't be further from the truth. So there obviously, I consider like weight loss and like physical physique as more of a byproduct of paying attention to your health. That's why so many people come to me and they're like, I want to lose 50 pounds. And I'm like, well, okay, first of all, why? Why 50?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they really don't know why 50. They just think that's a good number. And a lot of the times I'm like, I don't weigh people really often. I think it's good to kind of biomark every month just to kind of see where you're trending. Sometimes that can help move the needle and keep encouraging people to do what they're doing. But the weight, it really doesn't really play a factor. I mean, if you're significantly overweight, obviously having too much weight on is going to impact your health. But a lot of the times when you're first getting started, the scale is your worst enemy because you're starting to go to the gym, which you're gaining muscle, and you're almost at that weird place where you're gaining the muscle, which is making you heavier. And then you get on a scale and you're like, I've been going to the gym and eating right. Why did I gain 10 pounds? And then you're like, this isn't working. Let me revert back to my old ways. That's the same cycle everybody does. But you have to understand, and this is why I think working with someone weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever, having that accountability and that like come to Jesus moment of like, listen, you're going to gain weight, but you're gaining muscle. The fat is eventually going to melt off once we get to that muscle at a certain spot. You just have to ride it out until you get there. And I'm actually with one of my clients now, and it's so exciting because it was hard. I had to keep pushing her. And once she got to a place, she's like, I see muscle tone in my body. And now she's engaged. So she's like super excited when she's in her wedding dress and seeing muscle. And she's like, I just had to get there. But now I get it. Like, I'm not weighing myself. It's more about a feeling. So I consider weight loss, muscle, like those are byproducts of paying attention to health. And I think a lot of people who are hyper focused on exercise tend to fall in other areas of health, like stress management, things like that. And eventually they will develop some sort of autoimmune disease is a big one because your body is just so inflamed. Because I think a lot of people also still don't realize exercise is a stressor. So it's a good stressor, but if you overdo it, it's going to backfire. Your body can go into panic mode and actually store fat. And this is what I see a lot with women who are like, I work out 7 days a week and I eat 1,200 calories a day and I'm gaining weight. I'm like, yeah, it totally makes sense to me because I'm like, your hormones are out of whack. Your body is in like fight or flight mode. It's storing fat. You're overexerting yourself. Like nothing's in balance here. So why would you lose weight? And I think that's a very hard thing for people to understand. Sometimes less is more. And also for women and for us, we have complex hormone cycles. Most people don't realize you shouldn't be doing HIIT workouts at certain stages of your cycle. That's going against what your body's naturally asking for. So again, it all goes back to this intuitiveness. Like, how does my body feel when I eat this? During this time of the month as a woman, am I craving more carbs? Is there a reason for that? And yes, there is. Like, your body's so smart and it tells you things. You just have to like tune in and listen.
That is literally amazing advice. I just started trying to dig into the cycle syncing situation. And it does seem very complex. And there is so many different, sections to focus on. But I do see a difference. And I've just to your point, have seen the creators. I remember watching a creator on YouTube and she's like, I lost my period because I'm so shredded right now. But, if we get it back, that's great. But, that's not my number one goal right now. My number one goal is to X, Y, and Z. And to me, I'm like, you lost your period. I mean, I remember when I was dancing competitive and I didn't start my period until I was like a sophomore in high school, but they just said it was because I was exercising and not eating enough or whatever. But I never lost it after that, which I think is a little bit crazy. But I do remember watching those and being like, oh, okay. So I guess, if something like that happens when you have abs, it just means that you're like, I didn't even think like something seriously wrong with this girl because I was probably like 17 or 18 when I was watching these videos. Right. But it does, like, it impacts your hormones. And then I don't know what kind of issues she may have with fertility and stuff down the road from these kinds of things. But that all makes so much sense. And I also have just seen with family or friends and my mom has told me about her clients too. And she's like, the people that have that number, like, I want to weigh 150 pounds. And right now I'm 180 or 180, but they're 6 feet tall. And so it's not like the craziest thing in the world. And she's like, but they have this number stuck in their head and they're so fixated on the number, and kind of society makes you fixate on this weight, or I need 20 pounds lost or whatever it is. And so she's like, I'll ask them these questions and I'll ask my friends these questions. Like, how do you feel? I feel amazing. And do you feel hungry all the time? No. And I don't feel tired. And I can't wait to get up and walk and have the sun hit my face in the mornings. And it's what I look forward to the most. And I do yoga, but I do 15 minutes and just really kind of hold positions for a long time. But, it's not working. So I'm just going to give it up. And to me, it just feels like such an ingrained way of thinking, because I do think that so many different factors, the way our moms were shaking those Weight Watchers drinks and Slim Fast when we were younger and always talking about calories or weight loss or this and that, and you see it on TV and it's just surrounded us for forever. And so it is hard to like break that cycle in your mind of weight loss doesn't always equal, or a skinny person doesn't always equal a healthy person. Or if you feel amazing and that you're, like you said, 80, 90% of the time putting the best high quality things into your body and your body is giving you amazing results, you can sleep at night, you're not crawling to the coffee machine in the morning, you're, able to play with your kids and not always sore or sick, like, enjoy that. If you've got a roll or two that hangs over, or if you, don't fit in a size 2 dress, I don't think that that's the worst thing in the world. So it's nice to hear someone that is in the health and fitness and nutrition realm kind of agree with that, being able to focus on how your body feels, or just knowing that following those steps will ultimately result in your body being the best that it can be. And I'm sure like switching up your workouts and intensifying things every now and then is not a bad idea either. But to your point, going to the gym 7 days a week and doing a 2-hour HIIT workout every single time, it does seem like so much. And it just doesn't seem like I think about my friends that do things like that. And I'm like, okay, but when you have a kid and you can't go to the gym every day, like, does that mean you're just not going to do anything? Or are you going to walk? Or it makes you ask questions, I guess.
And that's what the thing is. It's not sustainable. Like, to your point, that's where a lot of the rigid dieting, the rigid plans, like, oh, I've done a program with X, Y, and Z health coach and it was good for the first 6 weeks. But then like once life resumed as normal, like I gained it all back. And it's like, yeah, like what you were doing for that 6 months wasn't you weren't going to be able to do that for the rest of your life. So then you're always starting over again. Like, do you want to start over again? No. Okay. Well, let's start very small, do little things every single day to where, to your point. And again, this is like, I did a TikTok about this recently. I've been, a lot of personal things have been going on with me lately. I probably have lifted weights in a gym 10 times in the last 6 months, which is bizarre to me because usually I'm like 3 days to 4 days a week weightlifting. But I've lost almost zero muscle tone. I feel the exact same. My body is still very similar to what it was when I was doing these things. Obviously, I'm a little lower on weight just because I'm not lifting as much, I'm not growing. But again, life happened to me for 6 months. And because I've been doing these little things each day, instead of being super rigid and relying on discipline to get through each day, my body totally didn't revert back to where it was prior. I'm good. Once life starts settling down, I'll just pick it right back up, and little to no impact. And that's where I want all of my clients to be at. So where they can go on vacation, come back after 2 weeks and not be like, oh my God, I have to rely on discipline to wake up at 5:30 this morning to now go back to Orange Theory 5 days a week. Like, that's not fun. It's not scalable. Like, why do it to yourself? Why do it?
Yeah. Yeah, I hated the early morning workouts. I tried it. My partner does it and likes it. And I tried to match that. And I'm like, I don't like that. I like getting breakfast done, emptying out the dishwasher, making sure the little one's on the bus on her way to school. And then when my house is empty, I can from 8 to 9, like, or whatever it is, 7 to 8, like it's just the best to me rather than 4:30, 5 o'clock. It was just too much. So that's kind of a great segue. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was going to say, I was the exact same way. Like, don't force yourself to be an early morning person just because you see that it's better to work out in the morning. Like, I'm the same way. I'm like, I want to enjoy my coffee. I want to have breakfast. I want to relax, then get my workout in later. Find what's conducive.
Yeah, I need sunlight first. I need to like feel the light on me. I just need these little things. I can't work out at night either. I feel like I was doing like I used to dance. And so I was just trying to get back into a couple things, trying out some new hobbies, and started taking a tap class again. And it was from like 8:30 to 9:30 at night, which doesn't even feel late, but we go to bed at like 9:30 or 10. And so when I was finishing that class where it was like, it's very much cardio for an hour, and then immediately trying to go take a shower and get straight into the bed, I would just lay there and have all of this energy like still. And I was like, this is just, I don't like this. Like, I'm not getting sleep on Tuesday nights. Like, I need that middle of the day, like balance like a toddler. Like, this is my recess in the middle of the day.
Right. I'm the same way.
So wanted to segue a little bit from, food impacts and the way that it makes your body feel to more of your personal health journey, which I know you were touching on. You said that you were an athlete, and you just said that you've taken about 6 months off from weightlifting, which you've been doing, and your body didn't have this crazy revert back to before you ever started training, which I think is amazing. What do you think is like the hardest incorrect fitness information that you had to overcome in order to get to the place that you are now?
I think it was what we were just touching on, is that more is better for anything. Like, the least amount of sweets that I can eat, the longest I can go without having a piece of cake, like that's a reward, like that's great. Or if I can go to the gym and work out for an hour and a half and be really sweaty, or go to this class and like almost pass out, like that's success. That was the hardest thing for me. And I think starting vegan and doing it that way, by going so extreme initially with everything, that's how I knew success when it came to health. Was, you got to do the extreme stuff. It's hard, but that's why not a lot of people do it. Like, I had that mindset of like discipline, like this is how you got to do it. You got to, if you got to wake up at 5:30 regardless, like this is the discipline. And I think there's still a lot of health influencers out there that preach that. Like, I only got 2 hours of sleep last night, but I'm at the gym at 5:30 grinding. And a lot of people are like applauding that, like, heck yeah, you have so much discipline. Like, I want to be like this person. And now I'm like, your hormones, oh my God, never sacrifice sleep for working out. Like, now my brain works in a different way, but it took so long to get there because we're still stuck in, if it's worth it, it's got to be hard. If it's this, it's got to be that. Like, and that's just not true. And the same thing with, I used to be so cognizant of ooh, well, I had bread for breakfast. I shouldn't have bread for lunch. Or, I didn't have bread for breakfast. So maybe I can have a sandwich for lunch. And
Yeah.
now I'm at a place where I'm like, I eat whatever I feel like eating, to be honest. Like, but my body, I've conditioned my body to where that's my body is working effectively. So I can do those things. And a lot of the work that I do now is around metabolic health, which
Mhm.
as I've been doing my own thing, as I'm working with clients, I find that that is the root of a lot of things. So I'll briefly just talk about like what metabolic health is, because I think there's a lot of myths about it. A lot of people assume, your metabolism is how well you digest food. You either have a slow one or a fast one. And you're just predisposed to have a slow one or a fast one. So people with fast ones, that's what everyone said to me growing up. It's like, you can eat whatever you want. You have a fast metabolism. And that's what
Yeah.
I wore it like a badge of honor. And it's just not true. And if you have a slow one, you're not predisposed to just like, it's going to be hard for you to lose weight. Sorry. Like that's not it. You truly want an effective metabolism. That's the thing that you want in your goal is. And what our metabolism essentially is how our body converts energy, and food is what gives us energy. So I think it's like 90% now. So 90% of Americans are metabolically inflexible. They have metabolic syndrome, meaning their body is running on sugar and sugar only.
Okay.
And the analogy that I like to use to kind of give people an understanding of why it's bad to run on sugar is when you're running on sugar, think of a fire and you constantly have to throw gasoline on it to keep it lit. Like, not sustainable. There's a lot of things that have to be thrown on this fire to keep it going. First, if you have a effective metabolism, it's like coal fire. There's not huge flames. Everything's just kind of roasting. You might have to shift the coals here and there, but you're getting consistent heat. That's what you want. You want
Yeah.
your body to be flexible enough to be like, oh, I just had a high carb pasta meal. Great, let's turn on the carb burning. Good, good, good. We're good. And then you're burning fats effectively. And then the sugars that you have, you're burning that. That's the goal. And when you have metabolic flexibility, you crave less sugar. You're less controlled by food. And I find that's the hardest thing with people when it comes to diet. It's like, well, I eat this. I know what I should be eating, but I'm craving a cinnamon roll. And so I want the cinnamon roll. So I'm like, instead of having your body work against you by craving the things that it's been running on, let's get your body to a place where it's like, I'm craving the fats. Sugars don't bother me. I can metabolize that quickly and move on. Then that's where you get flexible eating, because a cinnamon roll to me is going to impact my body a lot different than somebody who has been running on sugar for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of misconception. It's like, get your body to a place where it's burning things effectively, because then your sleep's going to be better. You're going to have more energy. Then the cycles kind of align in a way where everything becomes easier. You're not craving bad things. You're craving good things. You don't snack. You're eating effectively. Everything is just like a well-oiled engine.
And is that something you wish that you would have implemented in your health routine sooner, just like focusing on that first,
Yeah.
that metabolic, just being able to burn off your sugars and stuff? How did you, or do you teach people how they can get to that place, or, can find out whether their body is running on sugar and how they can kind of move past that?
Yes, absolutely. So I actually have a metabolic reboot program. So it's a
Nice.
4 to 5 month program. Yes. So we go through the habits that you need to put into place to get your metabolism working for you. But yeah, so when I was vegan, just to like personally why I wish that I went here first, I relied solely on discipline to eat vegetables, to work out, and my body, to your point, the reason that I cracked veganism was I was at a restaurant and a burger came by and my body was like, you need to have this in your mouth immediately. So I literally in that moment was like, I'm ordering a burger. Like my body just told me to do it. And I didn't even care. Like everyone's like, you haven't eaten red meat in years. Like your body's going to reject it. I'm like, my body wants it so bad right now. I ordered that burger and I don't know if it was good, but it was so good to me. And that's when I knew, I'm like, your body knows what it needs. Like you need to listen up to it. So yeah, if I had done the metabolism work earlier, again, I'd be more in tune. I'd be like, oh, I can eat that. I can eat that. And not feel like, oh my gosh, I'm off a diet. Like I'm going to gain 10 pounds because I had a burger type thing. And then just to kind of, if anyone's like, is my metabolism working effectively? A few signs that you are metabolically inflexible, meaning you need work on your metabolism. things like brain fog, fatigue. So you lack energy throughout the day, high sugar cravings, and then also feeling the need to snack constantly. Like you're relying on discipline to not eat food. If you are metabolically flexible, I'm telling you, you can go days without eating because your body knows exactly what to do. And you'll notice, I noticed once my metabolism got fixed, hunger felt different. I wasn't like, I remember being on calls being like, when does lunch get here? Because this is all I can think about. I could only think about lunch was arriving. And now I'm like, I'm hungry. Like my body's asking for food, but like, if you were to tell me there's no food for the next 30 miles and I'm walking, in the middle of the desert, I'd be like, oh, all right, let's just keep it moving then.
Yeah.
You notice a difference. And I think that's where everyone wants to be. So yes, I help people get back and kind of resetting their metabolism in that way.
Oh, I'm definitely the person that's like, if someone tells me we're going to a restaurant on Friday, we're sitting here on Monday and I'm dreaming about it every single minute. I've already ordered everything in my head. And when I get there and they say they're out of something, I'm like devastated. And then I'll snack 72 times, like waiting for it. So definitely need to get that reboot program. So yeah, you'll be seeing one person signing up for your metabolic reboot program today at, what time is it right now? 11:50 at 12 o'clock. No, I'm just kidding. So I'll make sure that we add all of that into the captions and have you kind of plug everything at the end as well, because I'm sure that people are going to want to sign up for this program. I know that I do already. I'm just like halfway through listening to it and I'm ready. So I know you mentioned a lot about your body running on discipline. Do you think that you still need discipline, or is just having some kind of consistency? I feel like at this point, a lot of people have debunked the motivation. Like you can have, peaks in motivation, or I know that I just got engaged, so I'm going to be getting married next year. And that can be something motivating. But then after that, what would be keeping me, working out or working on my health or eating healthy or anything? So what do you kind of think about that from your health journey perspective?
Yeah, I think discipline will always play somewhat of a role. But again, to your point, there are going to be days where you just can't. Life happens. And I find that the more you can control the controllables, but not let the uncontrollables affect you, the better. Because then you don't have these like, oh, well, I can't, okay, my kid's sick. I can't go to the gym today, right? Like instead of that being such a negative thing, like get to a place where your body's like, cool, take this as a rest day, spend some time with your kids. And that's why I like the holistic approach to health, because you can almost silver lining everything. Like, oh, okay, well, you got injured at the gym. Like use this as a time to recoup, like focus more on stretching. Like maybe your body is telling you that like, I'm doing a lot of this, I need to rest. And it's very critical for that. And also a lot of, when I work with people just like one-on-one, a lot of it is the habit building. So the girl that I'm working with, who, when we started working together, zero exercise, zero caring about what she ate, like starting from scratch essentially.
Yeah.
And now she's like, I have to remind her like, hey, life happens. You didn't make it to the gym today. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, and she's so excited to go. And so she doesn't rely on discipline, because she's like, hey, when I go to the gym, I feel so great. Like it's a great thing. It's not something that I have to do. And again, it's all about the mental, the relationship with it that you craft. And if you're not, so I've never told her, you need to make sure you go to the gym for this amount of time, this many times a week. I'm like, hey, a good goal, 2 to 3 times a week, whatever you can do. And also I think being able to pivot is key. And I think this is really hard for type A personality people, because they're very all or nothing. Like, oh, if I can't go to the gym and spend an hour and a half, it just ain't worth it. So I'm doing nothing. So restructuring your brain to be like, hey, go home from work because you didn't make it to the gym after work or before work. Put a timer on for 10 minutes, do push-ups, squats, throw some stuff around your house. Like, I would consider that a successful day, knowing that like I stayed up late at work. Like, and that's what a lot of people don't do. It's like all or nothing, all or nothing. Oh, I ate a cinnamon roll this morning. Screw it. Might as well have a burger at lunch and then go out to dinner for, it's like life happens. Let's just move on. That's the biggest thing. And I think with doing such small, healthy habits each day, they're less daunting and they become second nature. So like, you don't have to rely on discipline so much. Obviously, there are some times where you're like, I really don't feel like doing this, but I know it's good for me. Discipline, motivation, let me kick in.
Yeah, I think that that's the perfect way to think about it. I'm definitely the Capricorn, more type A personality. So it's like, well,
Capricorn too. So am I. Yeah.
so I'm like, yeah, I guess if I can't go to the gym, I'm just a worthless person and I might as well just lay in bed all day. No, it's like today, I felt that I did not want to go out. It's very cold. You're not in North Carolina anymore, are you? I didn't think you were.
No, I'm in Florida.
No. Okay. So in North Carolina, I don't know how it is in Florida this morning, but it's very cold here today. And I did not want to get all bundled up and go on my walk. I usually go on my walk for like 30 minutes. I'm like just trying to do 30 minutes and then I'll come inside and then I'll do like I'm trying to do that animal style yoga, which is very hard, but I'm in the very beginning phase. So I just do it for like 15 or 20 minutes just to try to get up my upper body and my wrist strength of like holding my body weight more.
Right.
And so this morning I was like, it's really, really cold. I haven't pulled out all of my winter jackets and stuff yet. It'll be like 80 degrees again next week. We're not doing all of that. So I was like, you know what? I am going to move the furniture around and clean behind the couch and clean behind the recliners. And I'm like, that will be my 30 minutes of walking. And I probably sweated even more than if I was walking around my neighborhood listening to the birds chirping. So yeah, I feel like that's a great little tidbit of advice too. So the next section is audience questions, which I feel like you've already answered so many of them. I was just like quickly scanning through to remember. And it's crazy. We have touched on so many. So I'll just read these straight through. Some of them you may be able to answer, and then some of them you may have to, refer to one of your programs, which is totally fine. But so we had one person that said, I've been eating low calories and working out, not seeing results after 4 months. What could be wrong? I feel like you did answer this one. I'll try to guess and you can tell me if I'm wrong. I would say that they're only looking at one section of the pyramid. Maybe they're super high stressed, or like you said, maybe they're eating 1,200 calories and doing 7 HIIT workouts a week and their hormones are all out of whack. And that's what I've learned from the podcast so far. What would you say?
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's definitely probably part of it. Also, just on the topic of calories in general, I am not a huge advocate for counting calories, to be honest.
Okay.
So, because I think a lot of people rely, well, first, it aids in an unhealthy relationship with food of, I need to get the least amount possible. And truthfully, we should be like, how can I make my meals as nutrient dense as possible?
Yeah.
So for this person who's like paying so much attention to calories, I encourage you to pivot your tracking of food around protein. So in an ideal world, and this is what all my clients, I have them do, and it almost, their sugar gets reduced, carbs get reduced, like it just, by paying attention to just this one thing. And it's an adding. Again, it's like a positive reinforcement versus like you need to take away something, low calories. Add in, everybody rule of thumb, protein per day. Protein's critical. It's going to make you feel satiated. It's going to give your body everything that it needs to regulate hormones, build your mitochondria, build muscle, sleep better. Ideal body weight, whatever ideal body weight means to you, get that many grams of protein per day. And ideally in those 3 meals. I'm not a huge advocate for snacking. I think it's unnecessary and it doesn't give your body time to digest. So, and for women, that's like, hey, 40 grams at least per meal. So stop the calorie conversation and counting. Focus more on getting 40 grams of good quality protein per meal. Get a little bit more in tune with your exercise regimen. I would say weightlift 3 times a week, walk or do yoga the rest of the time, and see how your body changes in that regard for weight loss.
Okay, switch over to protein. So I have a question off of that. What would you consider like the top 2 high quality proteins? Because you keep saying high quality protein. Does that mean I just need to drink a protein shake?
Ooh, no.
Or no?
You can. So I love eggs. Not everybody does, but eggs are like nature's superfood. Don't be afraid of cholesterol. Don't be afraid of eating too many eggs. I eat like 4 eggs in the morning every single day. Good quality protein, eggs is a good one. And again, make sure it's from a good, free range chicken. good quality cheeses as well. Cottage cheese is kind of my staple in my house and what I recommend my clients have because it's so versatile. You can add it to protein shakes. It has a very high protein content. So I can add it to protein powder and protein shakes to get even a little bit more. Add it to
Mhm.
pasta sauce, soups, eat it plain. I add it to my eggs. So I have like really protein packed eggs in the morning, and just keep a carton of it. It's so versatile. And then also good quality meats. Again, same note, don't be afraid of eggs. Don't be scared of red meat. It's a very nutrient dense protein. I eat red meat all the time. Good quality protein there. And then I do recommend keeping a protein powder on hand just because it's good to easily scoop that into something to meet your goals for the day. So, but protein powders, just like the supplement industry, not very well regulated. So make sure that you're getting it from a good sourced protein. They're not adding a bunch of extra ingredients and sugars in it. Two of my favorite brands are the Just Ingredients. She has an Instagram. She's great. So if anyone wants to follow her, good clean protein there, and it's not chalky. And she has an Instagram, so follow her. She has great just tips on quality ingredients as well. And also, it's not chalky. I'm a huge I don't want chalky protein, especially since I'm adding it to random things and I'm not blending it always. And then Ancient Nutrition. Those are my two favorites
Mm.
that are very good quality, very good to mix and everything. I add protein to my coffee in the morning actually to get more protein in there.
Nice.
Yogurts, smoothies, oatmeal, having that to just easily throw into a meal is going to help you reach that protein goal.
Nice. The next one is, do you believe in cheat meals?
Oh, so no, in the way of quote unquote cheat meals. So I believe that you should just eat intuitively. Again, 80/20. Cheat meals, again, has a negative connotation. And we've talked about the importance of relationship
Hmm.
with food. So if you are associating one specific meal to just blow it out of the water and not care, it's not the best mentality. You're better off just, oh, I stopped by a bakery today to grab coffee and they had a scone that looked really good. So I picked it up. I'm not
Yeah.
reserving it for my cheat day. I'm not being so rigid with it. Um, Also, I just feel like it's the negative connotation. It's just not good. Just eat whatever you want throughout the day by making sure that you're in that 85/15 type thing. So I call it fun foods. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna have a fun food today. I'm gonna get a Cinnabon or whatever. Like
Yeah.
even just the name association from cheat, which is very negative, to like fun. And again, especially as you're having kids, like cheat, you don't want to have that type of language around food
Yeah. It's like
when
we
they're
want to have
growing
a
up.
fun food. If you want a
Right.
fun food for
Right.
this, you can pick one, not two. Yeah, that
Yes.
makes more sense. Yeah. And just almost like you have to teach your younger self how to get past all of these things, so it makes it easier if you're using
Right.
fun words instead of the negative ones all
Right.
the time.
Yes.
So
Let's
you
not.
touched on this a little bit, but you mentioned the supplements that you like for protein, but supplements in general. And I think the way that this person was asking it, the question is, what is your opinion on supplements and vitamins? Um, I think the way that they were asking it, it seemed like it was kind of like in place of you're at the end of the day and maybe you didn't get enough protein or you didn't have a vegetable, or so I'm just going to take a handful of supplements and vitamins or be taking a bunch of, gosh, what is that, collagen powder, or what do you think about all of the supplements, or should you be getting majority of your things from whole foods?
Yeah. So I'm always on the side of getting as much as you can from whole foods. But that being said, it's hard because our soils have just been depleted of our nutrients. So like an orange from 40 years ago had way more nutrient value than one today. So we're kind of limited
Okay.
there. So food might not be enough these days. And we're seeing it in a lot of blood work. So if anyone doesn't do this, get blood work once a year. Like this is
Yeah.
something that should be maintenance. Blood work, see if you're deficient in anything. That's going to be the biggest bang for your buck. I live in Florida. I was deficient in vitamin D. Like you need a lot. And just depending on your melanin, like some people might need a little bit more than others. So being very cognizant of what you're deficient in, and supplementing. So I personally supplement. I have consistent ones that I do daily just based on my blood work and what works for me. There is a caveat though, supplement industry is not well regulated. So you can't just go to CVS and be like, oh, omega-3 fish oil, let me grab that. You could just be paying for very, very expensive urine at that point and not really doing your body much benefit. I do have an ebook that I go through my favorite brands, but Standard
Nice.
Process is a good one, Pure Encapsulations. I've probably done a post on one of my social medias around this. If not, I'll probably need to do another one here soon, but paying attention to quality of the supplements as well. And this is also why I think working with a health coach can help dumb it down a little bit, because they'll point you in the right direction. They'll let you know if like, oh, you shouldn't be taking that with that, because that kind of counteracts one another. So don't blindly go take a bunch of supplements, consult somebody to some degree, but I'm an advocate for supplements as long as it's done correctly.
Nice. I'm going to pick 2 more, and then I'll have
Okay.
you talk a little bit more about your services, your ebooks and stuff like that as well. Let me see which 2. Okay. What do you think about fasting? I've had several people ask this one.
Yes, I actually really love this question, because of course there's not a straight answer for it.
Yeah.
Fasting, people have done it for many, 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 many years, and it's a very religious thing, and it's very great for you if done correctly. I'm a huge advocate for majority of people doing time restricted eating, so stopping eating at night at a certain time and not eating till X amount in the next morning. 12 hours tends to be a very good time frame for everybody to not eat. So stopping at 8 o'clock at night and then not eating till 8 a.m. the next morning, that'll benefit almost everybody. Now, caveat when it comes to fasting for longer periods of time or days, it's truly, fasting is similar to exercise in that it's a stressor. So you don't want to be someone who's overworked, undernourished, and then you're going to fast, right?
Yeah.
It's almost, you have to earn your right to fast for long periods of time, in my opinion. Don't say, I've never cared about health and I heard fasting, you can lose 20 pounds in 3 days. So I'll do that. Like, don't recommend that at all. Also, in the tone of women having more complex hormone cycles, it's not good to fast certain times of the month for us. It could be more damaging. So that's why for women, fasting while you're actually on your period can be more beneficial, but leading up to your period, your body needs more. It's building up that uterine wall. So it's going to need a lot more nutrients, and depriving your body of that can be detrimental. So again, work with somebody, do your research when doing it, but fasting can be good. You got to earn your right. And if you want to start small, do that 12-hour window.
8 to 8 seems like an easy one.
8 to 8.
I might have to do mine 7 to 7 because I like having milk in my tea in the morning.
I'm the same way. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to have some protein and milk to my coffee. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Stuart can have he drinks black coffee, and I'm like, ugh, gross. Can't do it.
I had to do that this morning, and I was like, ooh, no, doesn't do it for me.
I was
either.
like, every once in a while I'll try it and just remind myself that it's just not for me. Every time I try it, I'm like, no.
Yeah. I
so
agree.
the last question is, how can we all stay connected with you? Tell us a little bit more about those services. I know you said you had your metabolic reboot, you have your ebook, and I believe you even mentioned your podcast might be restarting. So give us a little bit more information on how we can connect with you.
Yes. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok mostly. I think it's cat_Leavengood for both. I tend to share similar content on there. You can probably get a little bit more meat on the bone from Instagram itself. Both will have a link to all of my ebooks, my freebies, and things like that. But, and yes, I am rebooting my podcast. I was doing it with a co-host. Now I'm going to be branching off a little bit. So to be determined there. But when it comes to working with me, I do kind of 3 different ways you can work with me. So I have a metabolic reboot. So if weight loss, getting your metabolism working for you is kind of your thing, you can go book. I do free consults for everybody. So if you're like, not sure if this is for me, but I'm curious, go to the links in my link tree, book a free consult. We'll talk for 30 minutes and determine if it is something for you. And then I also have a 12 steps to lasting health ebook that I created. So basically,
Kat, wait
over the
1
course
second,
of
it just froze a little bit, and I want to make sure everybody gets this in there. Okay, go ahead. 12 step.
Okay. Yeah, 12 steps to lasting health. ebook. So I basically compiled 12 very small steps for health that you can do. It's laid out to give you one new step a month. So it's very slow and steady. That basically I have myself do, all of my clients do, no matter their unique journeys that they're looking for. Standard fundamentals that everyone should be doing. So that's kind of a self-guided program if you want to just kind of dip your toe in health and kind of building the building blocks for that. I go into why it's important. I go into a specific action item for you, and almost every section has links to anything that I'm suggesting, whether it's a water filter, products, anything like that. So you got everything you need in that one ebook as well. You can also just DM me on Instagram with any questions. If you want to work with me at a different capacity, I'm always open with just helping anywhere I can.
Awesome. So to stay connected, this is Cat, CATLEAVENGOOD, Leavengood, living good. I mean, it makes so much sense. There we go.
Yeah, right.
And then I always like to ask when I have a guest on, anything that you've been kind of consuming lately. It doesn't have to be health or fitness related, but just it could be trash TV or you watching the new Kardashians, just any music, podcasts, TV shows that you've been kind of loving lately in your free time.
Yes. I've always loved the Kardashians. I don't know if I'll ever not love them. I just can't help myself. So I am doing that for sure. But I tend to read a book on health and then a personal development type book. So the one that I'm reading right now from personal development is called The Untethered Soul. It's by Michael A. Singer, I believe, but it's just a very good book for anyone who it's basically talking about how to bring your subconscious and being more cognizant of how you think, how your happiness, how you have the complete control of your happiness, and how understanding triggers and how external things that are outside of your control, how to not make that impact your quality of life and happiness. So it's just a very good book for anyone. Everyone should read it. So that's currently what I'm listening to on my walks in the morning.
Gosh, I need to get on that. I'm listening to that Smartless podcast, which I just listened to one of their older episodes with Edward Norton, and it was pretty entertaining. I liked it. So that's all I've got. But thank you so much for joining me. This has been honestly a wealth of information. I truly am so grateful that you took the time out to talk to me this morning. And I'm definitely going to do your metabolic reboot. I feel like that's something that I've been missing and I would love to kind of start from scratch. So that's something I'm definitely going to sign up for. And if any of my guests have questions for Kat and have not connected with her on Instagram, please go ahead and do so. I will have this episode up Wednesday at 9. And if you guys want to see her in further episodes, let me know while she's in between rebooting her podcast. Maybe we can have her on again and answer some more questions. So that's super exciting. Thank you so much. And yeah, we'll connect with you soon.
So thank you so much.